Cold plunging, Earthlings. That's our topic for today as we get off on it, so to speak. It's hip, it's trendy, it's fucking freezing. I found cold plunging to be exhilarating and fantastic. As advertised in a lot of ways. You're going to even get to watch me do a 10-minute cold plunge with a twist. Wait for it, Earthlings. I am Matthew East, and we are going off topic. Cold plunging. It's not just for Navy SEALs anymore. Welcome to Off Topic, folks. Matthew East here in 2026, about to defer to Matthew East in 2023. The majority of this episode was recorded back then, and I did try to redo it last night, but I just realized that I was in that mindset back then, and I communicated everything about my memories, my experiences, the differences between what I went through and what modern medicine was saying at the time, just a whole lot better. From a hotel room in that era of my life. You'll notice the goatee was missing. Ironically, you'll notice that the shirt is exactly the same, which I don't know what that says about my fashion sense. Yeah, you do. But while some things do remain the same about cold plunging, other things have changed, the medical opinion being the biggest one. Once you've listened to the studio portion of how I was introduced to all this stuff, how it was integrated into my life, and the experiences that I had, you're going to watch a cold plunge from back at that time when I'd been doing it for about 6 months, and I do a 10-minute and 30-plus second cold plunge using only 10 breaths of air. Now, I'm not a superhero, but it does speak to some amazing adaptability stuff that I'll talk about back in 2023. I will talk about in 2023. That's the crazy paradox going on right now. Go ahead and have a listen. I'm not going to ramble anymore. I'm going to defer to that me, let you hear all about cold plunging back then, and then we'll talk about how modern medicine is catching up and acknowledging the benefits. Enjoy. You guys have all heard of it, right? TikTok is rampant with it. How many billion views, hashtag cold plunge type things you can find on there. That's the way I was introduced to cold plunging, was TikTok.
Never mind who he was watching cold plunge or how clingy her shirt was when she got out.
And I had no intention of pursuing it, doing anything with it. It intrigued me.
Not the nipples that could probably cut glass. The activity. The health. Get your minds out of the gut.
And then out of nowhere, last February, a buddy of mine says, "Hey, Matt, I want you to come over and experience this. I got a plunge tub." It was pretty expensive. Me and my wife are the only ones using it. I want to share it with some of my friends. Come on over and give it a try. I'm like, alrighty, let's do it. Brought the swimsuit, rolled on in there. He takes me out to his garage. What a setup, man. XL plunge tub, closet with towels and stuff. Beyond the plunge tub's a 4-person sauna in a garage. My garage has shit everywhere. There's a wedged spot I can fit my car. This garage has nothing but a plunge tub, a sauna, and its accessories. In addition to that, on the other side of a curtain is a wrestling mat that I think his son uses to practice and stuff like that. And I thought we were just getting in the plunge tub, but the first place we went was the wrestling mat. So before I go any further, this episode is going to talk about kind of what people are saying about plunges and kind of some of the stuff that I think is funny about it. Funny or interesting, at least. Dang this candle. But it's going to be my experience with 6 months of cold plunging. I'm going to tell you what that was like. And I'm excited to do that because here I go with the candle. The candle is positioned right here in front of my freaking face because it's the only place it's going to be on camera the way I've got this all set up. So every time I breathe down, I think I blow it out.
That'd be the exact definition of a windbag or just approximate?
But we're going to talk about plunging from my perspective. And we're going to contrast that with some of the things I've read, some of the research I've done in preparation for this episode. But right in the middle, or, we'll have a conclusion afterwards of this episode, is a 10-minute recording of me doing a 10-minute plunge, taking 10 breaths. That's 1 breath per minute.
So not only a windbag, but a math whiz.
A little bit more than that, because the plunge, I think I go 10 minutes and 40 seconds, something like that. I'm going to introduce it. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how I evolved to a point physiologically where I'm able to do that. And it's fascinating. So back to my experience in my buddy's garage. We lay down on our backs, and in that afternoon was my first introduction to Wim Hof's breathing techniques, all the benefits that go along with that. I didn't know we were going to be doing that first, but it's an 11-minute deal that you can find on YouTube. There's about 150 of these variants on this original video, but if you find the original one, it's him, it's his voice, he's coaching you through it, and it's really in my opinion, the one that's the most beneficial, or the one that's the most worth using. You know it's good, right? It's straight from the source. But we did this 11-minute breathing thing, me having never done anything like it before. By about the second one, I was feeling the physiological changes, the body temperature changes, the tingling, stuff going on. And at the end of 3 iterations, he goes, okay, my buddy goes, okay, I'm going to start it over. We're going to do one more 30-second iteration of the breathing. And then I want you to, instead of just holding your breath while you lay there, I want you to flip over, and I want you to do as many push-ups as you can before you have to take a breath. And I was like, all right, So I did this, 30 more breaths, and flip over with very little air in your lungs. And how many push-ups can you do? I did 40 that day, and could have potential. I stopped at 40 because he stopped at 40. I moved up eventually in weeks to come to just 50 every time I would do this breathing. 50 push-ups without breathing. I got no grid for that, right? So anyway, back to day one. After that, we then get up and go to the plunge tub. He gets in, demos it for like a minute. Of course, he's no hyperventilation, nothing, because he's been doing it for like a month and a half already. And I know what I'm getting into. I've been on hikes and things and jumped into freezing cold mountain rivers and stuff like that to cool off at the end of a long, hot day. I know what hyperventilation water is like and all that kind of stuff. So I knew what I was getting into, but this was something extreme. This water's 39 degrees. You're going to see me do this here again in a few minutes. And I got in, and it was just, the burning of the cold on my skin. And the goal, he told me before I got in, was 3 minutes. And he said, but if you need to get out before that, get out before that. Well, about a minute to a minute and a half in, I began to control my breathing.
Similar to, but not as fun as, the first time I
started taking deeper, slower breaths. And after a few more deep, slow breaths, he was like, okay, time. And I looked up at him and I said, I think I could stay in maybe a little longer.
Also remarkably similar to the first time.
And he goes, no, you can't.
Remarkably similar.
Get out. And he was right. First experience, you're not supposed to overdo it. And he told me I was the first person that ever made it 3 minutes.
Do I even have to make a joke here?
No, I think you'd only introduced this to 2 or 3 other people. But, I'm not special. I'm just fucking stubborn and getting through that. But I got out of the water, and he just looked at me and he goes, how do you feel? And I go, I can't explain it. And he goes, I know. And that was my introduction. He had me stand for about 2 to 3 minutes outside, just kind of stretching my arms and reaching for the sky and breathing a little bit to let my body not just jump right into a, sauna temperature immediately. But we did get into the sauna, warmed up for about 15 minutes at the end. And while we were sitting in the sauna, I just looked at him and I said, can I come do this every day? And he looked back and he goes, yep, no problem. You're welcome. And so I did. And guys, so 6 months of that is my experience. And what happened is, over a period of a few weeks, in the first week, I think I got up to 3.5 minutes to 4 minutes. And then another week to 10 days, 4.5 to 5 minutes. And on until 6-7 weeks in, I was up to 8 minutes in the plunge. every day, after the breathing, followed by the sauna. I left the timer at 8 for a few months after that, but on certain occasions when I felt really good at 8 minutes, I would go for an additional minute, maybe an additional 2 minutes. My stopwatch on my phone just starts counting up when the alarm goes off, so you can just let it go. I can know when another minute had passed and get out or whatever. And there you go. The first 2 months I was doing this, Earthlings, I didn't miss a day. And in the following 4 months, I think I averaged probably 28 to 29 days a month of 8 to 10 minute plunges. And by the very end, I was doing only 10-minute plunges. And at some point there in that last month, I started playing with my breathing. Actually, I did it along the way, but I started doing it more regularly, realizing that I had such control over my breaths and my body that I could get into that water and take approximately 1 breath per minute and get my entire 10-minute plunge done in 10 deep breaths. Now, you're going to see that here in a little bit, but what's amazing to me is how my experience flies in the face of like so many things that you read about with respect to plunges. Hey everybody, 2026, Matthew coming back at you here for a moment. Fast forwarding this section because this is where I elaborate on the significant differences between the 2023 medical community's opinions about cold plunging and its lack of proven benefits to what they now acknowledge in 2026 as a super healthy and beneficial practice. So skipping that and moving ahead, we're going to go back to 2023, Matt, as we prepare to get into the plunge tub back then. So let's do this, Earthlings. Without further ado, I want to show you my video. And I talk throughout, so for those of you who are just listening, I'm going to describe what the watchers on YouTube and the video podcast channels are seeing, but we're not going to stop entertaining you. And then I'm going to come back afterwards, and we're going to talk about what you read and what it is that's noteworthy about the fact that my experience was so unique compared to what you're supposed to feel and be careful of. So without further ado, here we go. All right, Earthlings, here we are for the plunge demo. As I told you from the studio, we're going to do a little test here. Been doing this for about 6 months. We're going to see where I'm at. I have done this before, but this is going to be the benchmark. Instead of a 10-minute timer, I'm going to have a stopwatch, and we're going to do 10 breaths. So this is both a demo of the ice water, which, if you look at this thermometer here, I'm going to go ahead and show that. It shows about 38 degrees. If we can see that, great. If not, we won't, but we're going to go ahead and take a look at the digital screen real quick. The digital printout should say 42-ish. There's about a 4-degree difference, but this is the real thermometer. The one that we've got in the water, showing that it's about 38 degrees. My fingers, as I take each breath, are going to move from the outside of my hips into the inside with breath number 1, 2, and 3. And as Micah films me, he's going to go back and forth just periodically between the stopwatch, which is on the tub, and my fingers, so you guys can pay attention to how my breaths are going along with the timer. The goal is to get above 10 minutes of time in the ice bath with a 10-breath period. I've just finished 5 iterations of the Wim Hof breathing, so my heart rate is slow, my breathing is relaxed, and we're going to take that physiological state into the ice bath and show you where we're at after 6 months of doing this. Micah, you can keep the camera here. I'm going to set my shirt down over here. We're going to go ahead and get started. Here we go. All right, Earthlings, as promised, those of you watching the video have just seen and heard my body descend into the icy, frigid water of the cold plunge in my buddy's garage. You can see my kind of plumpish belly matched by my plumpish cheeks as I begin my first exhale. The plump cheeks is just sort of an exhale technique I developed. It's a puffing out of the cheeks while the air very slowly escapes my lungs through the tiniest opening. It's really invisible on the camera between my lips. It's just a way for me to regulate the exhale to make it as slow as possible. And I can increase it if I want to, if I'm getting close to needing to be at the bottom. There's a little swallow there. You guys might have seen my jaw move if you're watching the video. That's a technique I figured out to help me control any and every hyperventilation impulse during the first couple minutes of getting into that 38-degree water. Even after 6 months, there's a period of adjustment when you first get in. And because I'm doing this breath demo, I didn't want to accidentally inhale any air at all when I'm not reporting that I'm inhaling one of my breaths itself. So that swallow is for that reason. Those of you watching now are seeing me kind of submerge my knees. I'm having to cross my legs at the bottom because the water level of the tub is just a little lower than normal. I'm trying to settle down low into the water, making sure that it's all the way up to my neck, covering my chest, and then I've got everything else underneath just for the maximum effect of the cold plunge on the body. Okay, this is me in 2026 taking over the narration. I did a little dated material after that, so we're going to do some more current stuff now. I did want to bring up what you video podcast watchers are observing right now, which is the thermometer basically coming onto the scene from the bottom of the picture. It had been floating down by my feet, and it literally just magnetized itself to my crotch, which is almost impossible not to acknowledge when you're watching this video, because this thing looks like a dang sex toy. It's a little ball, little funky looking monster floaty guy on top, and then the thermometer extends down into the water. So it's very phallic in and of itself. And then this thing just literally came up from my feet, and it has to do with the flow of the ice water as it moves around the tub as it circulates to keep it cold. But this thermometer just came in the one day I'm filming and decided to engage in intimate relations here through the swimsuit with Mr. Happy there between my legs. So that's kind of humorous. But it couldn't go without talking about, because if you're watching the video, you'd be laughing at it anyway. But to proceed forward, what you're seeing now is the third finger of my right hand has moved to the inside of my thigh. That means that I have completed 3 breaths, and I'm on to my 4th breath. If you're timing it, which you don't need to be, you're going to see the stopwatch here momentarily, you'll know that those breaths are a little less than 1 minute per breath at the point that I'm at. That's due to the cold water causing the hyperventilation tendencies early on. The more relaxed I get in the tub, the longer each individual breath is going to be. And of course, the hope in doing this demo was that I would result in a longer than 10-minute plunge over the duration of the 10 breaths, exhale first, inhale second, that I'm taking during the plunge itself. So what I'm going to do next is tell you guys a story about something that happened the day after I filmed this video in the plunge tub, again, about 24 hours later. But before we do that, you see the 4th finger move to the inside of my leg, indicating 4 breaths are complete. And camera zooming in on the time, it's just under 4 minutes of time. So that does validate what I was talking about with respect to the breaths being a little less relaxed, a little harder to prolong early in the 39-degree plunge experience. We'll keep an eye on that progress as we go. I think our next check-in is at the 7-minute point, or at the 7-breath point, and you will see where we're at when we get there. In the meantime, though, want to talk about what happened to me the day after this. Now, if you're watching this video, you can see how relaxed I look. The cold water really being conditioned to it and having the breath control is not impactful over time, and it's a real testament to the human body's ability to overcome the elements and really adjust. The very next day, though, I got into this plunge tub. It was actually about 2 degrees warmer than it is in this video. It was about 40 degrees on the thermometer, the cock-seeking thermometer, if you will, which has now incidentally nestled itself between the crotch of my pants and my right hand. For the record, very few things come between my right hand and that area normally, so this thermometer, we'll call it definitely a rogue and rebel artifact, partaking in the humor of this video. Hope you guys are enjoying that. I don't know if it's uncomfortable or not. A little bit for me, but it's just funny. I got into the plunge tub, though, the very next day, 2 degrees warmer, and felt a sensation right there at the tip of, we'll just keep calling him Mr. Happy. That's not his real nickname. He doesn't even really have a real nickname that you know of, or that I'm going to share here in this podcast. But the tip of my junk began to feel a burning sensation 24 hours later in the tub on my very next plunge that I can only describe as excruciatingly painful. Now, I'm a stubborn guy, and I sort of resolved that, look, I make the drive over to my buddy's house every day. I'm going to get my 10 minutes in. And the only thing that I can say about that in the context of this story is that it was a mistake. It was a bad, bad mistake. Every 20 seconds that went by felt like a minute. I thought I'd be checking the time and seeing another minute gone, and it was literally 20 to 25 seconds. Every moment was painful. It got worse and worse over the course of the 10-minute plunge, to the point that when I finally stood up after 10 minutes, I am a stubborn mofo, as I alluded to before. I finally got up out of the plunge tub. I went to sort of squeegee my swimsuit into the tub like I do every day with my hands to keep the water from dripping onto my buddy's floor to the max extent possible. And the pulling on my swim trunks literally caused me so much pain I had to stop. I felt like a soldier in Bastogne caressing his downed, wounded buddy, because my hand went into my pants and I very gingerly took what was an icy cold hand, but better than that abrasive fabric, and I was holding, I can only call it like Mr. Happy in this embrace, going, come on, buddy, you can make it. Don't die. Don't die. And I literally felt emotional. Medic! If you've seen any of the Band of Brothers or any of the other reenactments of those horrible, horrible days during that winter at Bastogne, you know what I'm talking about. But it was emotional for me. And I was able to get out of the tub with great pain and labor, and then move into the sauna. Back to the video here for a moment, because we are seeing the 7th minute, the 7th finger tick, and when the video camera goes over to the timer, I'm now above 7 minutes in the plunge tub. That means that my breaths have extended just enough to the average, to where the average breath is longer than a minute per breath, and I'm on a good pace to break 10 minutes in the tub over the course of the 10 breaths. So all that's going really well. I don't know, you can definitely see my skin starting to turn pink even under the water. Just again, physiological response. But by the way, again, in this video, Mr. Happy's doing just fine. No burning, no weirdness. And what I endured the very next day, continue the description, I got into the sauna just thinking, okay, all pain comes to an end. This is over now. We'll get thawed out. Everything will be fine. Earthlings, everything was not fucking fine. I made it through the sauna. I stayed in longer to try and get everything as warm as I could. I was drenched in sweat, and the tip of my dick was burning like I cannot begin to describe. It lasted all the way through that afternoon. I was working on a different podcast at my desk later that day, unable to shift in my chair without excruciating pain. And I was literally fearful that I had done some permanent damage down there. It did eventually get better. But the point of the story, the moral of the story is this. The human body is amazing. And I'm telling you a story about a negative experience, I think, to emphasize the truth of the positive experience. Like, what was wrong with me that day? I don't know. You guys have my ever-loving word before God. I was not playing around prior to the plunge, 24 hours after this video. I was not doing anything that should have caused that, even though I don't even know that it would have caused that. Nothing was different. And yet I had this horrible, horrible experience of pain that lasted hours and hours after my plunge. Why is that not true every day? Why is it that the body can be controlled and can experience things differently and more positively the majority of the time, even when conditioned to do so? I can't answer that question, but to me, it actually talks and speaks to the goodness and the magicalness of the miracle of these flesh suits that we live in as souls, our days on this earth. It's really, really cool. The fact that something that could be so excruciating on one day is really almost completely insignificant on almost every other day. So I thought it was a story worth sharing, and again, just a little bit funny. As we come to the end of this, I'm going to tease the post-plunge closing arguments, if you will, for cold plunging that we're going to get back to from the studio. I talked in my intro from 3 years ago about the differences between my experience and what the medical community says. Well, guess what? In 2026, the medical community has changed its mind. So I'm going to read to you some stuff that is now being said about cold plunging that was not being said 3 years ago when this was going on in my life. That's the teaser. We're getting ready to come to the end of the 10 minutes. You can see my 10th finger has come inside my thigh and my eyes have opened to check on the timing. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to me back in the studio. Over the time here. So we're about 10:40 or so, it looked like, 10 and a half. That's it, Earthlings. 10 breaths, 10 minutes, 20 seconds, 10 minutes, 30 seconds, depending on when you stop it. That's the best part of this whole thing. We're about ready to do that next. We'll talk to you back from the studio. Thanks for watching. During the time that I was in there, a 3-degree increase in the temperature of the water and the heat coming off my body over the course of 10 minutes. All right, we'll talk to you from the studio. All right, so there it was, 2023. 10 breaths, 10 minutes 30, 10 minutes 40 seconds, depending on exactly when the stop was as I got up out of the plunge tub there on the video. Pretty cool stuff. The biggest thing I'm going to talk about here as we conclude this episode is some changes I've noticed. I alluded in 2023, the intro you were listening to pre-plunge video here, to the differences between my experience and what medicine was saying about cold plunging. Medicine has caught up. Pretty neat. I want to read to you what I'm learning now the internet is saying, doctors are saying, about cold plunging, where it was kind of poo-pooing the stuff back in 2023. Here's what we got today. Cold plunges offer scientifically backed benefits for mental clarity, athletic recovery, and mood. And then, of course, because the lawyers said so, it says, but they also carry significant physical risks. And they list some physical risks, which I'll touch on here very, very briefly. But the benefits, listen to this, mood and focus. The cold shock stimulates the release of endorphins and surges in dopamine, which can significantly boost alertness and improve your mood. Voila! How about muscle recovery? Immersing in cold water constricts blood vessels, temporarily reducing swelling, inflammation, and muscle soreness after intense workout. Pretty great. I think we've known that. We've seen athletes in ice baths for decades. Metabolic boost is another one here now. So exposure to extreme cold can activate brown fat, which generates heat and may help boost your metabolic rate. None of this stuff was being talked about in 2023. It was all like, it's unverified, don't do it. Well, now it's been medically verified. 2026, we like it. So yay. Kind of aligns with all the breathing stuff and the master cleanse, all these things that kind of promote this alkalinity edge toward how your body functions most efficiently and how you feel the best, how you prolong your life and prolong your positivity. Prolong your life and promote your positivity. All that stuff is mixed in with all of this natural stuff, which is really fascinating. I'm going to list the risks. Cardiovascular stress. It says the sudden shock dramatically raises blood pressure and forces your heart to work harder. Can be dangerous to those with pre-existing heart conditions. Guess who has high blood pressure? I didn't experience any of that. What I experienced was a lowering of my overall blood pressure due to the exercising of the systems that cause blood pressure to be blood pressure in the first place. The heart, the blood, the lungs, all of those things that work together and can function better, work better, just like an exercise, just like a workout. Your body adapts to the stresses you put on it. Like when you work your muscles, you tear them, they recover with more muscle tissue and stronger for next time. That's exactly what I experienced during my cold plunging. So yeah, be careful if you've got a severe condition, but don't be afraid to try if a doctor says it's okay for you, because the benefits are there and you can make gains in those exact things as well. Hypothermia and shock, well, yeah, the water's effing cold. So, duh. Interference with muscle gains. So this is funny because a benefit is, temporarily reduce swelling, inflammation, and muscle soreness. And then a risk is building and bulking can be hindered because cold plunging immediately after strength training inhibits muscle building signals your body sends. So if you're trying to be Mr. Universe, maybe don't cold plunge. But if you're looking for functionality and overall fitness and strength, absolutely a wonderful recovery technique. How to plunge safely, and this will draw it to a close, Earthlings. Keep it short, it says. Limit your sessions to 1 to 5 minutes. Beginners should start with just 30 to 60 seconds. Well, I went with 3 minutes to start with, and my buddy made me get out, and he was smart. But you can start with whatever is best for you and work up from there. Mind the temperature. The water should ideally be 50 to 59 degrees. Okay, so both of these are kind of saying all things in moderation. Which is an episode, by the way. All Things in Moderation is a fun episode coming up. So there's a foreshadow. By the way, we don't focus on that word moderation, which is what everybody thinks about. We focus on the first 2 words, all things. So stay tuned, possibly next time, but very soon for the All Things in Moderation off-topic episode. My point, though, is this. Keeping it short, minding the temperature. I was at 39 degrees for 10 minutes. Those things are discipline things. And even though you don't need those for the physiological benefits, I love the discipline. And discipline helps you every other minute of every other day that you live if you force yourself to understand and be capable of physiological discipline. So don't discount that stuff. Lastly, but not least, it says never do it alone. Ensure someone else is present. And I agree with that because if I can have an abnormal reaction between my legs, Earthlings, maybe something else weird could go wrong on any given day too, no matter how many times you've done it. So be monitored if you're going to try this thing, and hopefully that'll work out for you. I didn't really prescribe to that very often. I was by myself most of the time, and the only thing that happened to me was I got a numb penis. Folks, on that abruptly strange and uncomfortable note, I'm going to bring this episode to a close. It's been a pleasure talking about these physiological things with you, these alkalinity promoting, dopamine promoting, brainstem stimulating, involuntary, autoimmune types of things that we can then figure out how to control with our very minds and our breaths and our physical activities. It's all super fascinating. It's all going to be a part of Matthew East Lives when that website gets activated here later this summer. And I hope you enjoyed learning about it, and I hope you'll come back and let me teach you more when the time comes. Off Topic is going to get more off topic again now. We're going to jump into weird philosophical ideas and thoughts, such as all things in moderation. All things being, let's not be too specified with our life. Variety is good, and a little bit of everything is better than any overdose or any starvation of a great many life experiences that are available for us. Moving into that season is going to be fun. Moving into this summer is going to be fun. But for now, I'm Matthew East. We've been Off Topic, and we'll see you next time. All right, Earthlings, thanks for being here. Thanks for sticking with me. And if you made it this far, why not take it a step further and give me a quick subscribe? I'm going to show you energy, diversity. We're going to make you smile and laugh and think in this rebirth of Off Topic. We're finding our groove here in 2026, and we're going to get you 3 episodes a month on the 7th. So look for us on the 7th, 17th, and 27th. Also, check out the email address and phone number on your screen if you'd like to participate. Take a screenshot, write it down, replay it, whatever you got to do. But reach out. I'd love to hear from you. This is Matthew East signing off, and we'll see you next time.